Corey, thanks so much for being here. I recently watched Big Boys, and it was actually on my way on vacation. I saw it on Air Canada, and there's a few people watching it on the Dreamliner, and they all seemed to like it when we chatted after. So they were right beside me. But I thought it was funny. I thought it was tender. I thought it was emotionally real. But before we get into that feature film, kind of want to go back a bit. Like some of your early work, you did editing, Love and Laundry, you acted. Where the Bears Are. You directed early shorts like Life-ish. And I guess my question to you is, where did this all start for you? And what was the moment or the person that helped you lean into filmmaking? Or was it more something that you kind of just found within yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways it was my dad because he was the one who gave me a camera to start playing with in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, and he was the one who helped me learn how to edit and watched the first movie I ever put together. Um, and also brought me to a lot of what would go on to become my favorite movies. And
Mm,
yeah, it's a bond that I have with him to this day. I think we have really similar taste and just really enjoy talking about movies. And I think that he always had a really strong appreciation for the arts. I mean, he's an English professor, and so I think he was just very encouraging of me getting into this. And my mom was too.
mm,
I would say she did it in a more like practical way. Like she was the one who was like finding me like film camps to go to school and stuff like that. So I'm equally to both.
yeah. So they were very encouraging throughout the whole process. And like, what age did you get this camera?
He was 8.
Oh, okay. So pretty early. Hey?
Yeah, I feel really lucky. It's truly just I fell into
Yeah, definitely.
ever since then. It's sort of just like
Right. Where did you sort of learn all the ins and outs and the cutting and the editing and the splicing and the production, all that? Yeah, no worries.
yeah, I learned that stuff partially on my own, just making films growing up in middle and high school and trying a lot of stuff out and learning Final Cut Pro and
Right.
all that stuff. And then in college, I mean, of course, that was like a place where I felt like I really honed a lot of my more technical skills and also just got better at like collaborating. I think in high school it was all about just like, oh, I'm the director, like I know what I'm doing here. Like everybody that I was working with, just like my friends. Um, and it was a different thing when it was a community of filmmakers. I feel like that was a really valuable lesson just in terms of like um sharing the creative load with other people and trusting other people's instincts and knowing what you're good at and what you need help with. And that ended up being really instrumental to me.
Right. And looking back at your early projects, um, did they teach you anything in particular that you carry with you into like what you just did with Big Boys? Is there sort of lessons or techniques that you have brought forward into your films that you do now and your directing that you do now?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was where I got all my practice working with actors, like writing dialogue that hopefully sounds like realistic, um, trying to tell like a clear story. Think it was really useful just in terms of like developing my sense of humor too, because I was like for the longest time I was really just mainly interested in making comedy. And since Big Boys is a balance of like a comedy and a drama, uh, I think that time spent just like really honing in on um, how to make jokes, come- you know, come up with a funny character, all that stuff. Being useful.
Right. Right. What are some obstacles that you've come across? And I know you talked about it with Big Boys about like raising capital and from donations and friends and family. So what have you experienced in regards to that?
Um, well, I was very lucky because I was able to go to friends and family who were willing to
Mm,
help in a way that just made the entire movie possible. And I think I don't know, that's not something that most people have the luxury of, and it's something try to not forget, especially just in the grand scheme of things. Like it's so beneficial to have people who both have the resources to help you and just like believe in you as an
right.
artist. Um,
Right.
that being said, like the stuff you mentioned, like applying for grants, getting a fiscal sponsorship. Like there's like things people can do to overcome these hurdles. It is a total grind. It requires a lot of work and a lot of rejection. But you know, we did some of that as well. Like we also applied to a ton of grants, only got one in the end. Um, but something that was really helpful to us that I do think everybody has access to is this thing called a fiscal sponsorship, where essentially you like partner with like a film nonprofit that extends their profit status to you so that they take in contributions to your film as like tax deductible donation.
Right. Right.
And that was essential to us raising money.
I'm curious kind of where that idea came from. Was it a script that sort of was percolating in your mind for years? Was it something that you saw on TV that inspired you? Can you pinpoint the moment when you started writing that?
Yeah. I remember I was on a road trip with my brother and my dad, and I was at a campground in Kentucky called Jellystone National Park. It was like a Yogi Bear themed campground. And I just had I could very much imagine being a closeted child.
Yeah.
And it was both very like relatable in like a very like emotional way, but also very funny. And I think that it was almost like that was like the package that I needed to put a bunch of different ideas and influences that I had leading up to that point, including my own experiences being a closeted middle school, and then conversations I'd had with friends and boyfriends about their own experiences at that age.
Right.
And then also seeing stuff on TV like Pen 15, which was such an inspiration.
Totally.
Go after the experience of being in middle school with like such accuracy and a very sort of like unflinching honesty of like what that's really like. And I just found that so inspiring. I could very much imagine making something in that tone.
Right.
So it was like all those things really came together in that one moment on that road trip, and it became very clear. I was like, oh yeah, like I really want to make that movie, and I think I know.
Very cool. Very cool. What kind of camera setup did you use, and how did you approach the film's look with your DP? Was it because people are making phones or movies with their iPhones these days, and the quality ain't bad, but like, you know, there's top line cameras out there like Black Magic and Red Dragons and things like that. So what did you use, just out of curiosity?
We used an Alexa Mini.
Alexa Mini.
I am not a camera person. I let my DP Gus Spinelli make that decision.
Nice.
I've never been a camera person.
Okay. But you hire the right people who know it then. So
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I think I was really intimidated by in filmmaking to begin with, where I was like, oh, well, if you want to be a director, then you need to be a technical expert in every different field. And it was really nice to see like, no, like other people understand that stuff much better than you do. What's important for you is for you to communicate the effect that you want those things to have.
Right.
And so those were the conversations I was having with Gus, and a lot of them were honestly about basically like doing a style that felt pretty plain and stripped back and undistracting, because it's such a performance-led movie, and we were so trying to capture something that felt very like nuanced and realistic, and have people really like tune into like very small details and things,
right,
in people's behavior.
Right.
And so it was like a way to like present that in a way that is still sort of like lush and beautiful to look at, but is almost like a bit more plain. And we looked at like some graphic novels and things like that, because I'm a big fan of like, you know, like Daniel Clowes, like Chris Wynn, Slice of Life.
Slice of Life, yeah.
Cartoons, yeah. And yeah, I think it was also a process of like figuring out like Jamie's, the main character, his perspective in each scene. And Gus was really helpful in being like, in basically forcing us to figure out like what is the intention of each scene, and then let's build camera work around that. And our intention was to put the audience in Jamie's head,
right,
and be
what you did well. Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah. Sometimes things don't land how you think they're going to land, and I wonder, you know, maybe this is a script, but then the actors thought this sounds a little bit different, or this sounds more realistic. Were you open to that? Those minor changes?
I was so stuff, because I feel like I can only get a script so far. To me, such an essential part of the writing process is working with actors. in rehearsal and on set, and like having them do improv, because that stuff just makes it feel so much more lived in. And they're like,
It's so
oh, I say
authentic,
it this
right?
way. Yeah, like
Yeah.
they're like, oh, like this joke would be a little bit funnier if I said it this way. Like that stuff is so important to me. And I feel like I used to have much more of an ego about it, but I
Mhm.
feel like I've pushed past that part of myself, and I see like, no, like bringing in other people in this way, it's making this much.
Right, right. And without that script and without your idea, maybe they couldn't have got there, right? So it's sort of an extension of what you wrote as well.
Yeah, it's totally a collaboration, because it's like I have a core intention, and
Yes.
then sometimes I need the help of the actors to actually get all.
But part of the process do you love the most, and what's still a challenge, So you've done editing, you've done directing, you've done writing. I'm presuming directing you enjoy the most?
Um,
Or is it the writing when you're in a room alone and coming up with an idea?
that's the hardest, and I think a lot of people would agree with me on that. Like that's the part that is the most sort of like gut wrenching, because
Okay.
you're often just like having to start and restart, and you go down a path to only see that like, ah, that's like the wrong path. And like it can be really extremely exciting when you feel like you land on something good, but like unfortunately I've learned that like just because you're really excited about something does not mean it's like there to stay. So it's just such a, and I think because I'm in like the thick of it right now, working on new features, it's like I'm just reminded of like it's just an uphill battle, but I really do love it, and it's really important to be able to direct things that I wrote. And it's still really creatively fulfilling to chip away at it and get closer and closer. But my favorite part is editing, and it always has been.
You like the editing portion, hey? Okay.
Yes. I like
Yeah.
that you have limited choices. So it sort of gives you a feeling of like, okay, I have to be really creative, but I'm also sort of like working within these parameters. And it's like that,
Right.
we'll say just about how like limitations can really help you be really creative. I really find that with editing. I think the part about writing that scares me is sort of like it's a feeling of like anything could happen.
Mm.
Like literally anything's possible on this script.
Do you find that you're writing all the time and you start one project and go to another? And like, are you constantly writing, or do you focus on one thing at a time and finish it and then move to the next?
I try to stay with one at a time and like get it, and basically just like get it to a point where I can show it to other people. And then I'll like step back from it and uh and take a break from it and then come back to it later. And I'm always tempted by other projects, because it's
Yeah.
that classic thing of like, while you're really in the weeds of one, this other project is sort of like glimmering over there in the distance, and it's like seems so easy, like it would just write itself.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I've learned to like try to see it through on whatever thing I've committed myself to.
Right. Right. So what's next for you? Are you working on something new or taking a moment to reflect? Like, the jump you've made to this like big boys. I can imagine it's opened a couple doors for you, and it's probably gotten you a fair bit of attention, I presume.
It's been really nice in the way that like we got to play at all these different festivals around the world.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to meet all kinds of people in and out of the film industry. Yeah, there's some people that I've met through Big Boys and through the reception to it that I'm excited to work with in the future. That it's like, oh, this really was helpful, just in sort of getting me out there and just like showing what I was capable of. And, I think in a lot of ways that wasn't my ultimate. Like, I really wanted to make the movie because I really wanted to make that movie, but it's also, it's totally a calling card. Like it has a practical first features can be that. Um, and yeah, right now I'm just working on more feature scripts, and I think stuff that is in this like a similar vein to Big Boys in terms of sort of like a comedy that like is leans more like on the cringe side of things, with some like dramatic elements, sort of slice of life, like has a lot of gay characters, gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So when you finished the script for Big Boys, did you know that it was going to get the success that it did, or was there uncertainty around that?
Yeah, I really didn't expect anything that has happened with Big Boys. Of course, I
Yeah.
could hope for something like that, but it wasn't like a feeling of like, oh, this is like a surefire thing.
Wow.
Just in terms of like, um, a like film industry response to it. But um what I did feel really good about is I was like, this, I feel like I'm the right person to make this movie. And I feel like this is very much in a tone that I have dreamed about making something in.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm being pretty honest about this specific story. And I felt excited by the fact that like we hadn't seen a lot of stories that were honing in on the things that it
Yeah.
does.
Right.
And or at least it was taking a new angle on that. That was really exciting to me. So like that really was like what propelled me forward and gave me hope that, oh, maybe this is something that could really connect with audiences.
Because I've talked to some directors, and when they make art, it's not so much about making money as it is about getting a story out there and like getting that feeling that you have within out in the public. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, definitely with indie film because film is
Yeah.
not a place to make a lot of
Right.
money. And
I mean, the money's a bonus. It's nice for sure. Don't get me wrong.
of course, yeah. I mean, I I really love independent movies, and I really hope to continue to work in them. I mean, that's really where I see myself fitting the most, and it has been like an honor to be like included in places where independent films are being highlighted and watched by people. Like my hope for the next 5 to 10 years is just to continue to work in that world and become a better filmmaker and challenge myself. You know, like making a feature was really scary to me for a long time, and I had no idea like how I would ever do it.
Yeah.
And I was honestly inspired by people around me who I saw do it.
Okay. That
One of my
helps.
very good friends, Matt McClung, he made this movie called Inhabitants. I remember seeing him start to take the steps towards actually doing it. I was like, oh wow, it's really possible, and that
Yeah.
inspired me to do that. And I think holding on to that sense of like, even if something scares you, but if there's part of you that really wants to do it, go for it. Because I still have those things in my own mind about like, oh, like I have this sort of pipe dream, but like, will that ever really happen? And it's like, I think Big Boys was an
Yeah.
encouraging experience in being like,
Yeah.
just try.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. You got to feel the fear and do it anyways, right?